Todd, would you like to start the program?
You bet. Hi, and welcome to our two-part event that will culminate with Dean Ahmed Ishmael receiving the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce 2020 Life Sciences Bio and Healthcare Innovation Award on behalf of Temple University's Maurice H. Kornberg School of Dentistry. Hello, I'm Todd Abrams, and I'm the Senior Director of New Ventures and Business Development for Temple University. And I'm a volunteer vice president for the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce. So when we approached the dean about this award, he characteristically wanted us to not focus on him, but rather on the issues around running dental practices safely in the COVID-19 era. Well, that turns out to be a perfect combination, as that is a key part of our mission at PICC, to help institutions and companies in our area identify gaps and find matches in those gaps in technologies emerging from Israel. So we are delighted to have worked with the dean and the planning committee to put together a very exciting program for you. Now let me introduce you to Vered Nohi, Executive Director of PICC, to launch today's event. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Once again, my name is Vered Nohi. I'm Executive Director of the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce. It's a long name. And this is an independent nonprofit based in Philadelphia for over 30 years now. We are non-denominational, and our main goal is to enable and support joint ventures between Israeli, Greater Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, Southern New Jersey, and Delaware companies and academic institutes. And we do so with many fields, including in dental tech, oral tech, life sciences, smart fabrics, all the technologies that you may imagine. As Todd mentioned, we approached the dean because we couldn't host the traditional beautiful gala that we host because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we explored how we can do together what we do best. What the chamber likes to do in every field, of course, is explore technological gaps and help you do what you do best, meaning right now, you can't practice oral and dental care in the way you are traditionally used to. So we would like to support you. The chamber has different tools to do so. Not only we do scouting and matchmaking and coaching for companies and academic institutes to do so, and we already started doing it with Dean Ismail, who was amazing. But we also represent a federal and Israeli grant mechanism. It's called BIRD. It has nothing to do with birds. It's abbreviation for U.S.-Israel Binational Industrial R&D Foundation, and this is a federal and Israeli grant of up to $1 million for each joint venture between Israeli and American partners. So through these programs, with the collaboration of the dean, as well as members of the Bridge to Peace program, which the dean will talk about in a second, we would like to see how through this program and future programs that we will host per your demand and needs, we can create significant social impact together. We can use innovation from Israel and our region to actually help people receive proper, safe, and accessible dental and oral care. So we urge all of you to really think outside of the box through these programs, raise the topics that bug you, literally, and together use all our resources to bring solutions. And we can be in a position to coach you to win the grants. We've done so often. Last year, 3 grants were won in our region. And we can pilot those technologies at Temple University, as well as some of the other academic institutes that are here in Israel, to make sure that it actually works on different population, especially on the disabled. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce a dear friend that in the beginning of this process I didn't even know, Dean Ahmed Ismail, who is really incredible. He's a forward-thinking innovator. He really took this pandemic and turned it into, how would I say, an opportunity. And we are very pleased with the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce to recognize him and his department, as well as the Bridge to Peace program, with our 2020 Life Sciences, Healthcare and Bio Award, which will be presented to him on October 21st. So without further ado, please, Dean Ismail, and we would like to see your face first, if possible, too.
Let's stop sharing. And thank you, Verd, and thank you for your introduction, and thank you for this wonderful program. I think this will be currently planned for a series of two events, one today and one October 21st, same time, 11:30 to 1. The October 21st will focus on really technology and innovations. It will be hopefully presented by a lot of companies from Israel, as well as the United States, who are presenting technology or developing or testing technology that is going to create a safe environment for practice. I should state at the beginning that, in my opinion, or based on the data that I have collected qualitatively, and maybe the ADA has better information than I am, that dental practice is safe. And we have been working at Temple now for over we started working first day of June, 100% fully operational. We have had no case among our dental community inside the dental school. We had few staff who got it from their family members, but nothing from providing dental care. So the systems that dentists are using is providing a safe environment. In addition to that, dentistry and the oral care is essential. As I'm talking to different providers of larger group practices, they saw a boom in business in this period. They're so busy trying to take care of the backlog of needs that were held because of the lockdown. So I'll start to share I want to introduce to you a very important project or a very important program that started not by me, but by some leaders who I'll mention them today. One of them is with us, Musa Bajali. But the Hadassah Hebrew University and Al-Quds University are the two pillars of the bridge to peace. We joined later on Temple University, and I'll explain the process. Somehow this is stuck. Okay, so really every large program has this hero who is not mentioned after the program starts, and this hero is former president of Al-Quds University, Sari Nusseibeh. And Sari Nusseibeh is a Palestinian professor of philosophy, former president of Al-Quds in Jerusalem. And until December 2002, he was the representative of the Palestinian National Authority in Jerusalem. He's since, I think, retired. But he made a statement in a conference in 2006, around that time, and I don't have exactly the date, against boycotting academic institutions in Israel. There was a movement, as you know, that's still ongoing in certain aspects, but he said something like, if we want to punish any sector, this is the last one to approach, which is boycotting universities. And this led to a communication between Al-Quds University and Hebrew University presidents, and they proposed that they could start with the dental schools. Dentistry is not that controversial, and that's how the Bridge to Peace was born. And we have one of the leaders of the Bridge to Peace, Musa Bajali, Adam Stabels is the other one, and they took it to a different level from that original idea. And it became a bigger program initially, where you have the two universities working together. There are exchanges of faculty and students, but then also there's a lot of education of faculty who receive formal degrees and certification from Hadassah. So Al-Quds received a number, or have now a large number of faculty who were trained through the program, the Bridge to Peace program. I joined, or the Temple University joined the program in 2009. We signed memorandum of understanding with both dental schools. In 2011-12, there was a need to develop a third arm of the bridge to bring Palestinians and Israeli students, faculty, to a neutral zone where they could really work together or meet each other. So we started this program of bringing students and faculty to Temple, to Philadelphia. They have to live together. They visited every site together. The rule is you can't leave each other. Initially, they even had the apartments together, and which we continue to do that. The same hotel or the same apartment. If they want to party, they party together. Even those who don't drink, they have to go to the bar with them. That was the rule, and travel together. So for 2 weeks, these students initially was enlightening, who really don't have no idea about the other side, became friends, and these friendships continued. And I've seen it grow throughout the years with the first wave and second wave. And then we started to invite faculty, and we had a plan to bring Palestinian students and faculty and the dean to Temple in April 2nd, 2020. And unfortunately, that didn't happen because of COVID. So this program ran into a political problem, not the program itself, because the politics of the Middle East and the politics in Israel and the West Bank and Gaza and all the frictions that exist. It became a little bit isolated until about 2015, 16, when I discovered Shalva. And the discovery of Shalva was really a turning point in my life. And this is Yossi Kalman, who right now there is a whole 8-story building in Israel. This is my first visit. It's the Model A of caring for disabled children and individuals. There's no match to Shalva. So I wrote them actually, and it appeared now in the book, Dream Never Dreamed of by Rabbi Kalman Samuels. I wrote them a poem after I wrote. It's called The House at the Gate of Heaven. And the reason why it's the house at the gate of heaven is because how the children were really interacting and treated, and how happy they are, and how they work in that home for them at Shalva. It's not a residential home, it's a home for a day program, and sometimes they stay at the home, which is now 8-story building, for 1 weekend every 2 weeks. So Shalva became a focus for us in terms of bridging the gap between us, Israeli and Palestinian counterparts, students, faculty, as well as bringing Palestinians to Shalva, Palestinian students, and also encouraging a meeting between Palestinian and students and faculty at Hadassah. So we did this program for 3 years, and this is the first group. They were transformed. The dental students from Temple transformed permanently. And this is a group, this is Rabbi Kalman Samuels, and this is our visit with another group to Shalva. So we started a program now that there's a bridge around Shalva where we go and the Palestinian students come and Israeli students or faculty came as well, or we go and meet them in Hadassah and have more of a scientific conference. So our goal is to maintain the passion, maintain the momentum for the Bridge to Peace, which went into a lot of political dynamics of the region. And I think my experience in transforming myself is that you have to accept to walk on the bridge while being built. There's no bridge that's complete. Nothing is concrete, and you have to accept that uncertainty. And one of the things that I learned, and I saw people learning or not learning, is to listen and suspend your assumptions, suspend your beliefs, just listen to the other people. And actually, that's what I was able to encourage the students to do, is don't assume anything, just listen to the other side, because humanity is one, not two. Everyone wants to have family, peace, prosper, work. So listen and suspend, and then learn without prejudice is very important. Don't always think about what people say and reject it, accept it, and then analyze it. Lead through examples, do something positive. But most importantly, this program requires passion and requires courage to maintain. And we're committed to maintain this as long as I am here. We will continue the Bridge to Peace program with Shalva, with Hadassah, Al-Quds University. And then Ms. Nochi arrived at the scene, and she provided us with a new venue, which is using technology, innovation, development to bring the Palestinian side, the Israeli side, and Temple and other schools in development and testing technology for safe practice. So that's really the background, the synopsis of a short program. or the presentation on the Bridge to Peace and how it started and where we're going to go with it. Now I'm going to introduce a very highly regarded, one of the people who I have high respect for is Dr. Kathy O'Loughlin. And she is the executive director of the American Dental Association and is really an expert in many aspects of dentistry, specifically the profession of dentistry, the practice of dentistry, the policies, the insurance system used in dental practice, public health policy. And we are so glad to have her as the executive director of the ADA in this turbulent period when COVID started. Her leadership is necessary for us to navigate a lot of the challenges we faced in the early days. So Kathy, without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to this event.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be included in this group, and I have the great pleasure to introduce our first keynote, Mr. Stanley Bergman, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years. Stanley has been the chairman of the board and CEO of Henry Schein, Inc., a Fortune 500 company, since 1989. That is such a long tenure, Stanley. I don't know how you managed to stay in the game with this amount of passion and enthusiasm, but you do. Henry Schein is a highly regarded company. It always makes the Fortune World's most admired company. I think you've been on that list for 19 years. Your 19,000 employees love being ambassadors for the dental profession and the medical profession, and you are the largest medical office, dental office supply company in the globe. And you operate, I think, in over 31 countries. So perfect person to give the keynote, and I'd like to hand it over to Stanley.
Screen. I know you've been very, very, very busy. There's probably not an hour in your day when a new challenge doesn't emerge. And so you've guided dentistry through the most difficult period probably in the last century. So thank you, thank you, thank you for what you've done for the profession and actually all the constituents that make up the family of dentistry. Let me begin by thanking the Philadelphia Israel Chamber of Commerce and the PICC Foundation for the opportunity to share some perspective today. And of course, to congratulate the PICC on the great work this organization is doing. Let me also say hi to the terrific citizens of the great city of Philadelphia. I also want to congratulate Temple University's Maurice H. Kornberg School of Dentistry, and yes, the Bridge to Peace initiative for this wonderful honor that you've achieved. The PICC 2020 Life Sciences, Healthcare, and Bio Award for advancing dental and oral care to all, especially the disabled, and it certainly is well deserved. In particular, really, congratulations to my very good friend, Dr. Ahmed Ismail, who we just heard from. There are entrepreneurs and there are social entrepreneurs. Dr. Ismail embodies the words social entrepreneur. He's a visionary, he's a leader, of course, at Temple, and been a great leader of the Alliance for Oral Health across the borders, working in close collaboration and in partnership with Dr. Musa Bajali, another great visionary, and of course, Dr. Musa Bajali's partner, Professor Adam Starbaltz of Hebrew University. An extraordinary partnership that has done extraordinary work in a very challenging part of the world where oral care was used as the bridge. Thank you for everything you have done and continue to do to advance oral care, of course, in the Palestinian-Israeli arena, but much further than that because you are setting an example for the world. Today's first panel discussion will examine safe access to oral health care and overall health through innovation and technology. So let me share a few thoughts about innovation, healthcare, and pandemic. Healthcare has always been advanced by innovation and technology. That's a given. And during times of crisis, the rate of innovation accelerates. Serendipity jumps all over the place. Consider the HIV/AIDS crisis of the 1980s, when my company, Henry Schein, took a lead role in advancing infection control in the dental practice. Prior to the 1980s, there was very little infection control product used by dentists. Today, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated innovation in healthcare. The speed that really has never been seen before. What has been accomplished in the last few months is remarkable. Innovation is necessary because of the many infection control challenges we now face in the dental community. Of course, there's the patient flow through the dental practice, air management and purification systems are emerging, and yes, PPE, personal protective equipment, which has become such a political football. Due to COVID-19, in April, we saw the dental and medical markets plunge massively, precipitously, but not as much as we actually predicted in May. Actually in March. But we really had a big challenge in the profession in April, May, and then a slow recovery in June. And now back to where we are, which is pretty good. And I'm talking about in the US, but also in a number of other countries. We experienced this terrific recovery in June, not perfect yet, and believe that the recovery will continue. We still have a long way to go, but directionally the trend is pretty favorable. Of course, there are setbacks from time to time. This quicker than expected recovery is thanks to the innovation, collaboration, and commitment that is the foundational quality of the global dental community, the profession working with academia and industry. Lessons learned so far. So what are the key lessons of the pandemic so far? We are seeing innovation in the acceleration of digital transformation throughout society. The rise of virtual meetings, we're on one. Some suggest that might be the death of distance. Distance has been shrunk, but face-to-face will come back. This hybrid approach will come back. But we've learned some good lessons during COVID. We have seen companies, businesses, academia successfully move their businesses, the classroom, from offices to homes, raising questions about the workplace of the future and academia of the future. With more people working virtually, the global cybersecurity threat has escalated and requires innovative solutions. We are confident these solutions will emerge, but this is a whole new area that we've learned about. Well, we are seeing innovation in new products and services resulting from the pandemic that will drive strategic opportunities for all of us. Telemedicine, teledentistry, yes, and telehealth. Electronic forms and other tools to minimize wait time in the waiting room. And in fact, before you get to the waiting room, PPE, infection control, air management, and purification systems abound. New ideas, more locally manufactured products. Geographic diversity of the supply chain is occurring. It's not about any attack on one country, but every country needs PPE and other products near where they are going to be needed. From Henry Schein's point of view, the pandemic also influenced our product offering, and we are looking at greatly expanded product offering in the infection control area and efficiency in the practice. We are seeing accelerated innovation in leadership style. This is fascinating. Poll upon poll amongst business leaders. People are seeking moral leadership from business leaders, and I would submit the same from academia and the same from the profession. Culture that focuses on purpose and environments where people feel inspired to come to work. These are all lessons that have come out of the COVID period. Leaders in service to employees, leaders servicing the team, finding new ways to inspire the team, innovate with the team. This is all key takeaways from this period. Unleashing the entrepreneurial spirit, even in big companies. The soft touch is more important than ever before. Ideas streaming out. Leaders who take exceptional care of their teams in any field are being appreciated. Another lesson learned from the pandemic is that the challenge remains. This does not end. the COVID crisis will not end with a vaccine. There's more to this. Innovation will continue. A vaccine will certainly help solve the medical issue, but not the overall economic and social dislocation and the way healthcare will be practiced. This is a work in process at the moment and will continue for years to come. How we anticipate and react to difficult circumstances we can control is what defines our character. How did we respond in this crisis? We each need to search our souls. We must unify going forward because we're right in the crisis. It's by no means over. We must unify, keep positive, and rise above divisive rhetoric. This is so critical because COVID-19 does not care who we vote for. There are no passports. There are no visas. Everybody in the world is impacted by COVID. And at the end of the day, it's about civility amongst everyone in the world. Let me just end with a topic that I'd like to cover a little bit, and Ahmed touched on it. The pandemic also has underscored the fact that people with disabilities have a long history of unequal access to and discrimination in oral health and primary care, which has resulted in large health disparities between disabled individuals and non-disabled individuals, as well as poorer health outcomes. Bottom line, in the United States alone, about 10% of the population has some disability or another. Healthcare facilities lack accessible medical diagnostic equipment for those with mobility disabilities. We have to face this as a society. Dental and medical education lacks instructions on physicians, dentists, non-discrimination obligations, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA Act, and I'm dealing with the US now. It also lacks instruction on disability cultural competency, very important. This concern spurred a collaborative effort between the National Council on Disability, the NCD, this is a federal council, government supported, and Henry Schein Cares last year to help equip and educate medical and dental communities on disability competency. We try to set an example as Henry Schein and are looking for participation from others in the industry and of course from academia. COVID-19 quickly highlighted these issues of disabilities and the critical need for non-discriminatory access to healthcare for people with disabilities. The presence of a disability does not diminish the value of life, and people with disabilities should not be abandoned by the medical system. They must rely on the system. We need is a system that appreciates every person as a person. So in conclusion, the opportunity to innovate and collaboration is why today's event is so exciting. Ahmed, congratulations. You're an innovator, a social entrepreneur. Through today's discussions, we can explore safe access to oral care and overall health through innovation and technology. And we can examine the technological gaps that exist for dental and oral care givers in COVID-19. These gaps are big. The solutions to these important issues are advanced by the discussions like the ones we are having here today, and by our collective commitment to innovative, collaborative, and contribution to our individual core strengths, to all working together in public-private partnerships to create solutions that will benefit everyone. Throughout my career, I've seen the power of public-private partnerships to address issues that seemed impossible at the time. I leave you with this final thought. We're in a terrible time, healthcare-wise, economic-wise, and yes, sadly, social-wise. If we all work together in public-private partnerships and inspired by the work that Temple is doing, by Musa, what you have done, what Adam has done, what Sari Saber did, and we remember what the late President Nelson Mandela said, it only seems impossible until it's done. I invite everyone to join in this mission of it may seem impossible until it's done. Thank you very much.
Well said, Stanley, well said. As always, you hit the high notes and speak plainly about the need to understand and address equitable healthcare, social justice, inclusion of all parts of our populations, and work constantly to improve access to healthcare, especially for the most vulnerable. And I think the pandemic has shown a light on what we do extremely well and what we don't do very well, and gives us all an opportunity to speed up innovation, to accelerate innovation that serves the needs of our communities. And as a profession, I think we can be very proud that dentistry recovered very quickly from the effects of COVID-19. I'd like to introduce the first panel, and I think their focus will be on innovation and innovative solutions, improving access to healthcare during a time of extreme unknowns, unknown unknowns, as is said. The first panelist is Marisol Tellez-Merchant. She's Associate Professor in the Department of Oral Health Services and the Residency Director for the Dental Public Health Program at the Kornberg School of Dentistry at Temple. Our second panelist is Galit Almonzino, who is the head of the Oral Facial Sensory Clinic, Department of Oral Medicine at Hadassah Medical Center, Hebrew University. And finally, and you've heard his name mentioned many, many times, Professor Musa Bajali, former Dean, School of Dentistry, Al-Quds University. So I'd like to hand this off to the first panelist. And I think Q&A, questions and answers, will be at the end of all of the presentations. I want to remind the panelists that Dr. Ishmael has asked for 5 minutes to present your information. And thank you so much for joining us today. I would hope Marisol is ready to start.
Yes, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marisol Tellez, and I am the chair of the Department of Oral Health Sciences at the School of Dentistry at Temple. It's an honor to be part of the panel today. I will try to briefly describe some of the changes and challenges that we had to go through in the past 6 months to be able to return to clinical operations after COVID-19 emerged. So back in March, we really had to start by doing a critical analysis of all the sources of infection in the dental clinics. At the time, the protocols that had been approved by CDC and by OSHA mainly focus on the presence of bloodborne pathogens, but I think that the profession and the regulatory bodies didn't anticipate the important and potential role of saliva in the transmission of COVID-19. So this was a critical piece of information that guided the development of new infection control procedures that we had to develop and to make sure that all the clinics comply with using different levels of PPE, depending on the type of procedures that were going to be conducted in the clinics. And mainly I am referring to those that would generate aerosols versus those that didn't. To make things more complicated, we learned also back in March that transmission could occur from asymptomatic patients. So just relying on symptoms to guide our practice was not really sufficient. And there were a lot of changes that needed to be made. By May, we had worked extensively to develop those new infection control guidelines that were informed by research that was also conducted at the school. And I will briefly describe a few experiments that we conducted to be able to assess the spread of aerosols and measure their concentration by mocking different procedures and using different devices. We got approval to operate the oral maxillofacial surgery clinic and an urgent restorative care clinic. And basically we were following ADA policies. We also had to align with the Pennsylvania stay-at-home order that was in effect until June 5th and the university's reopening plan. So a lot of logistics also simultaneously to coordinate to be able to advance all these actions. And we even had to navigate all the legal challenges so that our predoctoral students and graduate residents could actually return back to work. The pictures that you see here are from, as I mentioned before, research that we conducted at the school, in which basically we were interested in trying to understand what was the spread of aerosols in the dental operatory, because at the time there were very few in vivo and in vitro studies that had actually documented how much aerosols would actually stay in the air related to the dental operatory. So you can see here intra and extraoral high volume suction units that we used while mocking different procedures. And we actually partnered with environmental health at the university who brought these aerosol meters to actually measure the average concentration of particles at different sizes. And with these experiments, we were able to determine that for many procedures, we were able to contain the amount of aerosols by using these different devices, but that it was mandatory for us to use this device, such as the ADS, the high volume suction unit, which is placed extraorally, to be able to contain aerosols, particularly for procedures such as prophylaxis or a clinic. So all this information was translated into the development of those guidelines. In June, we were able to purchase high volume suction units. Our medical clinic, which is called GPH8, the Greater Philadelphia Health Action. It's a federally qualified health center that is located inside the school, actually developed capacity to be able to test using PCR molecular tests for all the staff, the students, and the faculty. We were also ready with the renovations of all the first floor clinics, but we only had capacity to operate 63 chairs. And for those of you who know a little bit about the school, we have about 140 DMD students per year, in addition to the postbac program and international students and the residents. So there were significant changes for the clinical operations so that the school could actually function again. We also had to do changes to the preclinical labs. Now we were limited to only 48 seats instead of 140. We were able to add the sneeze guards and new ADEC units at the clinics. We even built a negative pressure room inside the sedation center so that we could have capacity to treat COVID-19 positive patients. And in addition to all the changes that we had to do in terms of clinical operations, our research infrastructure was also affected. So by June, all the laboratories were directed to develop very detailed protocols for reopening that were approved by the Office of the Provost for Research. Some other aspects that we carried out to prepare all the facilities for returning to operations was by placing hand sanitizing stations at the main entrances, as you can see here, in waiting areas, in the reception desk, obviously placing the appropriate signage in the waiting areas so that we could ensure social distancing and we could remind everyone about respiratory hygiene and sneeze etiquette. We had to stagger the patient appointments so that we would minimize contact between patients when they were in the waiting areas. And basically a lot of physical modifications and construction were carried out so that we could actually go back to operations.
So you have 1 minute or less than 1 minute.
Currently, we are screening patients 14 days before their scheduled appointments. We have developed stations at the entrance of the clinics in which we have members of a health assessment team that triage patients and check on the screenings that have done that have been conducted previous to that attendance. We even had to separate the entrance for patients and employees, and here in the picture you can see one of the structures that was built at the main entrance so that we could actually also protect our patients if we had a rainy day. In terms of changes for patient volume, this is data comparing 2 weeks, September 1st to September 11th, 2019 versus 2020. And you can see that on average, we are now scheduling 13% less patients in this period. And we are seeing actually 10% less patients than when compared to 2019. There's a lot of variability in the clinics, and some of them actually have shown some increases, like the undergrad endo and grad perio. And I believe that among the many factors responsible for that, one is that a lot of patients delayed care, and therefore now they have more complex needs. But in addition to this, I'll just finish by saying that As with any crisis, we also had opportunities for develop new programs. So now we are partnering with the Jesse Dupont Fund to provide rapid point of care testing for students before they go out for outreach. And we are trying to develop our contact tracing infrastructure so that we can have capacity to isolate units within the clinic without making decisions to shutting down the whole building. We also expanded our services that we could provide related to teledentistry, and that is an ongoing project. I think we learned to operate more efficiently by redeploying some of the workforce depending on the priorities and needs that we had in some areas. And it even gave us an opportunity to develop new research in oral microbiome and COVID-19. And I think lastly, I just want to say that all these changes would have not been possible without the leadership of Dean Ismail and some selected faculty at the school that from day one were working 24/7 so that all of us could actually go back to work, students to training, and patients to receive care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marisol. Wonderful information. I'd like to open this up now to Galit.
Wow. Hello? No. You don't see my screen. Just a minute. Stop share. Just a minute. Do you see the screen?
It's coming. Yes, we see these slides.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So good day, everybody. Congratulations for this wonderful event, and I'm really honored to be here. Today, I will describe the experience of Hadassah School of Dental Medicine in Jerusalem during the COVID-19 outbreak. I'm actually the head of the infection prevention of control of the school. At the beginning, I would like to thank our dean, Professor Aaron Palmon, and all the wonderful team at the dental school, including the vice dean, Professor Zini, for their wonderful leadership. And all of that you will see here is actually partnership of everybody in the school. On March the 12th, the Dean's Office announced a delay in opening the Students' Clinic for the second semester. On March the 15th, the school's executive committee announces the first working protocol during the outbreak. On March 17, the Israeli Ministry of Health postponed elective dental treatments in Israel. The faculty departments remained open during the outbreak at all times, serving as an emergency facility of Jerusalem district and surroundings. We have negative pressure rooms at the surgical departments of the hospital, and we served the Jerusalem district and actually patients from all Israel. At the Students' Clinic, clinical teaching was delayed and renewed on May the 3rd. We established an international collaboration of 3 dental universities to further develop the operatory and clinical protocol. The collaborative effort included our Hadassah School of Dental Medicine in Israel, the University of Rochester Medical Center in the USA, and the University of Pennsylvania in the USA. The established protocol was published on May Journal of the Quintessence International and was translated to several languages, including Turkish and Japanese, and it was already cited by several international studies in the literature. On May the 3rd, we reopened the Students' Clinic. Preceding the reopening, the working protocol was delivered to the students and staff via Zoom and emails. To reopen, adjustment had been made that include installation of separation walls, and later on, glass separation walls were installed on each dental unit. Gradual treatment comeback started from minimal activity focused only on emergency treatments, and after 2 weeks, expanded to regular treatment activity. We performed coronavirus screening tests for students upon reopening, while the staff is screened regularly according to Hadassah Hospital policy. Before starting any procedures, the students fill a mandatory checklist that includes all the necessary steps needed to provide treatment. Clinical teaching is allowed only after the checklist is filled. Now we have some challenges. The main current challenges of the school include the recent second quarantine in Israel. We are currently in quarantine in Israel, the second quarantine, the expected third wave and seasonal morbidities during the fall and winter, how to enable adequate clinical experience, and the economic impacts, of course, and the psychological and social impacts concerning the staff, students, patients, and mainly the decision-making uncertainty. Thank you very much for listening.
Galit, thank you. Very excellent information and amazingly similar to the journey that Temple has gone through. I'd now like to turn this over to our final panelist, which is Professor Musa. Are you ready? Dr. Bajali?
With you, I'm ready, yes.
All right, I will hand it to you.
I have to share with you this slides, these slides, only 3 slides. Yes. You see the slides?
Not quite
No, we
yet.
don't.
Galit, did you stop sharing? Each speaker needs to stop sharing before the next panelist.
I did stop share.
Musa, you should be able to share your screen now.
Yes, yes, I did now. Yes.
You select the file.
What's happening? Yes.
Musa, you can describe the slides maybe.
Yes,
Oh,
no,
yeah, we got
I
it.
did.
We're getting it.
I did the share.
This is coming through.
Coming through.
You see the slides?
Not yet, Professor
Not yet.
Bajali.
Okay. So I will start without slides. Honestly, I was in the United States in my sabbatical at Harvard Dental School in this period since starting September last year till the end of June this year. So our colleagues in the dental school, they did all the protocol based on the guidelines as temperature measurements and the PPE, and they worked with the half capacity. So so the students worked the half capacity of the chairs, and also they continue with the sterilization as the protocols, and everything is going okay, and they didn't have any problem all this period. Now I would like to share with you my our journey with the Bridge to Peace. So on March 21st, 2006, we get started our program with the support of D. Walter Cohen, God bless his soul. He's our much loved person, who were the inspirational role models for Bridge to Peace. He brought faculty from Hadassah Hebrew University to Penn Dental Medicine to improve the quality and enhance the capacity. And the same experience duplicated between Hadassah School of Dental Medicine and Al-Quds University. So now we have more than 7 faculty in our dental school that they graduated from Hadassah Dental School, Hebrew University. The high self of the program was respecting and helping each other. as well working together and sharing knowledge under the umbrella of promoting understanding and trust, building common understanding among oral health. The foundation of the Alliance for Oral Health Across Borders, it was on August 3rd, 2011, and Israeli and Palestinian dental students formed friendship through a Bridge to Peace project. They have been invited at Temple Dental School through our relation with Temple Dental School. We honestly believe that the resolution of any differences can only be through dialogue, because the thorough conflict is between humankind and nature. Therefore, a human being needs to help his brother in humanity to confront the nature challenges. We strongly believe that the moral and ethics have the principle of the infinite value of human life. I congratulate you, Ahmed, and Temple Dental School for the award, and I sincerely hope you will continue the path of bringing people together to create healthy atmosphere to communicate and to work together. In the same time, we fully recognize the effect of being in the Alliance for Oral Health Across Borders, working together to have more success. Again, congratulations for you, Ahmed, and Temple Dental School, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bagali. I think the message of humanity working together to solve massive healthcare problems like COVID-19 is so consistent with what I know about Dr. Ishmael. So I'd like to now hand this over to the next panel moderator. And I'm not sure, but perhaps Dr. Ishmael would make that introduction.
Bert, are you doing the introduction? Okay.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Julie
Yes.
There you go, perfect.
So I do housekeeping, I apologize.
I'm
She's a
Julie
dynamo.
Charlstein, President and CEO of Premier Dental Products, and very, very happy to be here. It's been a lot of inspirational content, so thank you very much. Yes, Steve.
You're the third in the generation of presidents and founders of, starting with your great-great-grandfather.
I am the fourth generation.
Fourth, yeah, the great, and your grandfather and your father and you. So it's a family business that has existed in Philadelphia from the early part of the century.
That is correct, 107 years. So while we've never seen anything like COVID, we've certainly experienced many crises throughout the past century plus. And lucky for me, I got to deal with this one. So, okay. Our panel is talking about furthering the discussion in terms of technological gaps for dental and oral caregivers during the time of COVID. And we have a lot of exciting and diverse perspectives. We're going to be hearing from industry, academia, and development. With David Coachman. I can't see him on mine, but I can't see everyone. So I'm assuming that David is here.
I am. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Dave. And Dr. Palmone and the Dean, of course. So as was discussed and highlighted, as the pandemic emerged and grew, many technological gaps became illuminated, not just for oral health, but for overall health and point of care services. So the main three obviously were PPE, infection control, and then the third was diagnostic testing. David, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Shine within these areas where you saw the gaps and how you've been able to fill them with currently available products or things that you are looking to in the future?
Thanks very much, Julie. And I want to thank Ahmed, thank you, and Temple and Hebrew University, Dr. Palmone, and everyone for participating. It's a real privilege to be here representing Henry Schein and speaking to some of these issues. Julie, I think you really encapsulated three areas where there are huge opportunities coming out of this. I think we've certainly seen an acceleration in the innovation that is coming out from this pandemic, just by dint of circumstance. So addressing each of these components, right? I think, PPE, you very charitably said that we were able to get everyone PPE. I think some people may disagree with that. At the same time, we were doing quite a lot behind the scenes. And I think it's worth just taking a moment to talk about, why were there gaps? Because I do help think that informs what happens going forward. So stepping back, a number of the products that needed to be used in response to the pandemic were not used in the dental setting previously. I don't know that, as Stan would say, I don't know that many people could spell N95 prior to March or February of 2020. And then immediately that became a critical product. Now, because Henry Schein has both a medical and a dental division, and we do a lot of work with the pandemic supply chain network and work closely with the federal government, we have access to some of these products. However, not in the quantities needed. It was almost as if, imagine if dental amalgam all of a sudden became the elixir of life, right? You have a lot of people that need it, but they've been using that for years. And so we couldn't just rip that away right from the medical side, the physician side. We have to have a balance of the two. So I think the first is that, there were these new products that just were not being used before, that now need to be used. So that's an area where we have an opportunity to help fill that. The second component, which also plays into why these products weren't available, was that just based on how businesses run nowadays, we're a public company. We obviously focus a lot on helping out, but we're still a public company. And the way companies make money now is by having just-in-time inventory. We don't have stacks and stacks of things there. Things are made, and they are made in the areas where they are cheapest, where they can be made well and quality, but still in areas where there's a lower cost to produce. So you put all of this into the mix, and there ends up being a gap when there is a pandemic. Now, we've done certain things to help fill that gap. For example, having public-private partnerships where we work with the WHO and the World Bank and other manufacturers to pre-position supplies around. But when the entire globe faces a pandemic, it stresses this entire supply chain. So I think that actually presents a new opportunity for us, and something Stan commented on. We now talk about, from a global health security standpoint, should we onshore or domesticate some production of critical supplies? So this is something that could be done and possibly will be done in some way. There's some groups that are working on this. The PPE project and Open Medical Supplies is working on how do you do this, having people that may stand up production, they make something else, but then stand up production in times of a pandemic. From a business standpoint, I'm not sure how many people on the phone here are going to be comfortable paying 25, 30% more for their PPE just for nationalistic or to be patriotic. People may do a dimension of it. So how do we achieve that balance, I think, is actually an opportunity for innovation. On top of that, with respect to PPE, this is an opportunity to advance the type of PPE we have. If you think about it, even from a mask component, we've seen some really interesting things coming out with clear masks, reusable, that can be autoclaved, that would be used not just in the dental setting, but then outside of that. I'm not sure how many of you have the discomfort of having to wear an N95 every single day, all day. It's very, very tough. Causes respiratory issues. I mean, this is difficult. So we are seeing a number of manufacturers, both new and existing, that are looking to iterate off of that. I think relative to the new products, this also flows into infection control opportunities. Certainly dental setting already had phenomenal infection control procedures. And I think that's why a lot of people feel comfortable coming into the dental setting. But now with different airflows and technologies that can be put in the room, wonder whether this will be standard practice going forward and whether that will be the expectation of patients. On top of that, add in, beyond just the infection control equipment, new protocols that perhaps are put into place. Are we going to have patients all sitting in a closed waiting room themselves, waiting before a procedure, before there's a check? When we actually do certain procedures, will there be testing or other preparations we do in advance, cognizant of the fact that there may be some aerosolization that could cause an infection? So think again, these all present really fascinating opportunities, and I've got to commend every single one of the groups. I see Dr. O'Loughlin here, so I got to commend the ADA and of course OSAP as well. People have really come together in a phenomenally collaborative way to think about these new things and where opportunities are. And so again, one of those new opportunities that we see as well, and I think a lot of folks here have seen, is when we talk about diagnostic testing in the dental space. perceive there to be at least 3 megatrends that actually are playing into the acceleration of dental testing and the diagnostic testing in the dental space. The first is the integration of oral health and overall medicine. And this is something that has been talked a lot about. People are iterating and trying, but now we really need this, right? I mean, we need more people to come together to do this because we just don't have enough healthcare professionals out in the community to be able to do this. And dentists, as you know, are probably the best positioned in the community to help with their patients. And I'm not talking about the treatment, but simply helping with the diagnosis. That filtering mechanism, the dental profession and the hygiene profession can play a really essential role. And you add on top of that, this move that already had been underway to bring testing to the point of care. So dentists themselves, you're seeing patients, most patients, hopefully twice a year. So to be able to do testing, CLIA-waive testing, pretty simple testing in the dental setting is something that there's a tremendous opportunity. I'm not going to go too deeply into this, Julie, because I know that we have the second session where we're going to talk more specifically about testing, but simply just to kind of frame it out here. We've got on the viral side 2 types of testing. We have molecular testing, and then we have antigen testing. The molecular testing is actually looking for the viral RNA, and the antigen testing is looking for the protein coating around it. Speaking very, very generally, your antigen testing is going to be a little bit cheaper, and we should have pretty good, coming down the line, pretty good availability of that testing. And it will take, we'll have different modalities for it. Right now we have nasal swabs. We hopefully will have saliva-based saliva samples for that as well. On the molecular side, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you're going to have a higher accuracy, higher sensitivity and specificity in terms of how you do that. Within the and within both of those, there is an ability to do rapid point of care testing for each one of those. Our hope and expectation is that given those megatrends I discussed, the movement towards integrating oral health and medicine, the need to leverage a wider healthcare workforce, and bringing testing to the point of care, that actually happens to coalesce really beautifully, that oral health care professionals can and should be a critical component of helping restart our economy and getting us back up, and that in the future, diagnostic testing will just become an accepted part of dental practice. To what extent and how far it goes, I think, is going to be the subject of a lot of debate. But just like telemedicine and just like work from home, things that people had concerns about before, and should we do it too quickly? What are the ramifications? We've kind of been thrust into it where there's really not much of a choice. And given that, I think that it's going to be difficult to put the toothpaste back in the tube, which is an opportune pun. And I will now pass it back to you, Julie.
Well, thank you, David. And I can say, you know, with the theme of speed to market and the truncated time of innovation, that it's certainly also a much shortened time for education. And in my conversations with David, even before all of this in preparation for the panel, the wealth of knowledge and the depth of understanding in terms of the different types of testing and the products available and the supply chain and distribution is really tremendous. So thank you very much, David, for that. So turning over to Dr. Palmone, and I'll just tell you in advance, you are still on mute, so take a second. So looking at, if we're kind of now trailing through the testing and realizing the current state of testing available, I'm pretty sure you have a presentation that's going to be able to talk to us in terms of the realization of what testing is available and what the gaps are, and then leading us into how those can be filled. Like David had said before, probably most of those technologies in terms of the filling of the gaps will be talked about in the next session. But maybe you can give us kind of an overall sense as to what the trajectory is looking like for the diagnostic tests.
So thank you very much for inviting me to talk. Just a moment. About new technologies for rapid diagnostic tests for COVID-19. So this is my focus, and this presentation will also align this event with the next event when we will become more familiar with new technologies emerged in Israel. So if we are talking about the potential goals of COVID-19 optimal test, there are 3 general goals. One is clinical. The patient wants to know, am I sick with COVID-19? And his doctor, his physician wants to know what kind of treatment should he get. The second goal should be epidemiological, reduce transmission within the population. And the third one is economical. We want to open the market with low risk of transmission. If we are looking in the dental field, okay, so the most direct important goal is the economical. The physician, the clinician wants to know that his patient will not infect him or he will not transfer infection to other patients. If we look on a country side, yes, we can recruit our dentists to reduce the transmission within the population. If we are looking on the traditional COVID-19 swab diagnosis logistics, it is really complex. Okay, we need to build collection centers. We need to perform sample collection with medical staff. We need to mobilize the samples. We need to decontaminate the samples, then to do the lab work, and then to deliver the results back to the patient. So all this cycle is very expensive and takes a lot of time, which reduce our ability to reduce transmission within the population. So this directs us to define the parameters for better test. So what are these parameters? So if we want a better test, it should be chairside. Okay, no need to send samples, small need for medical staff. If a patient comes to our clinic, we want to do it within the clinic immediately. It should be simple to use, no lab work, preferably no large equipment, not expensive equipment. The procedure should be short. It should take about 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes, because we want to perform it while the patient is waiting in the waiting room before enter our operating room. And lastly, we want it to be affordable. If it would cost a lot of money, it will be a burden on the treatment cost of the patient. So how can we perform all the parameters and overcome the complexity? So I'll talk about especially two treatment possible assays that emerged in Israel and of course also in the world. One assay is based on saliva using lateral flow assay. We all know lateral flow assay because of pregnancy tests that we can buy in the pharmacy. It's simple, not expensive, and the results are made in several minutes. So one direction can be using saliva. Another direction which is interesting is using spectral technologies to check remnants in oral rinse or aerosol breath. Again, it is a quick procedures. However, they need some kind of equipment. So these two technologies, I hope, will be introduced in our next event. What are the advantages of such technologies? These are convenient, almost no need for professionals. They are safe, they are non-invasive, and they're pleasant. It's not like swab in your deep nose, okay? It's also suitable not only for point of care, but also afterwards with the right authorization, also for home use. And it allows fast detection. It doesn't take 3 to 5 days until you get the results, but you get it immediately. So if we would have such better technologies, what will we gain? So first, we would be able to screen the community with minimal medical team. Okay, minimal medical team means more efficient screening. It will be safe, simple, and rapid. It will, in the future, allow a home test. It is much cheaper because no lab, no team. It will allow possible detection of the real antigens, which means what we are interested is whether this patient can transmit the virus to others, not if he is sick. If he is sick, he knows it, he goes to the hospital, get treatment. What we are interested is to detect if he transmit the virus, and the virus is transmitted, as we know, by saliva droplet. It has less risk for technical mistakes in results delivery because you do it face-to-face, no computers, no need for complex delivery system. And in the future, it will also allow optional digital interface to share the results with the physician or with the authorities in this country. So I hope I gave you some kind of introduction to new testing essays that will be broadened in the next event. So thank you.
Thank you. You've given us a lot to think about, and it's certainly a great teaser for what our expectations are going to be learning about specific technologies that meet the needs. So now turning over to Dean Ismail, we've heard about the existing gaps. We've heard a little bit about some possibilities and the potential. So how is it all reduced to practice? How does the system actually play into this? We heard a little bit from Dr. Tellez in terms of what Temple was able to do with getting the clinic set up, but what does point of care look like? What are the things that actually we need to be considering? You had mentioned insurance before, costs. How should we be looking at the total systemization?
Well, thank you very much, Julie. This is a moving target in terms of thinking of systems, especially in the United States. You can see my slides? Yes. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to try to be brief because there's a lot of information. We can win the war against SARS-CoV-2 or the disease called COVID-19 if we develop systems and know the virus. We know a lot about the virus very quickly. We knew about the virus from December. We know that it spreads through nasal and saliva droplets and also through air droplets, which was known again in 2019 in December, January. This is a war against a virus. And what's the strategic plan that we need to do? So that the rules of fighting epidemics were not followed in the United States. Not all countries follow the same rules. No war can be won without logistics. We didn't have the PPE. We don't have the systems in order to win. No war can be won without integrated and coordinating systems and teams. We relied a lot on hospital care and we focus on the hospital, but really it has to go down the stream in terms of the healthcare system. And no war can be won without leadership. And many countries have leadership and some countries didn't have leadership. So the strategy in managing this epidemic is institutional and individual and also policy-wise. In buildings, what we tried at least at Temple is control the entry. I think but the control of entry is using not very good criteria. This is the best we can because it's a behavioral intervention as well. Disinfection, air quality, enforce mask and social distancing. And most importantly, which is not talked about, I think it's done at Shalva. I like the Shalva model, which is not talked about much, is they divided the teams of Shalva into sections. And each one of them have a band. And the yellow section doesn't go to the red section and so on. The reason why is that if there is a yellow section, infection in the yellow section, they just test that yellow section members and isolate them. Testing, that's why we need to do grouping and test by groups. They could be clinics in our schools, or all the clinic in a small clinic operation, departments, or by service units. Again, testing I would address should not be universal. When we do universal testing, the cost, even for a small group of 400 people every week, we test them, we estimate it is like $600,000 to $700,000. Even with rapid test and lower cost, it still would be a significant cost. Test only who have any flu, COVID, or 19 symptoms. Rapid test with high sensitivity, because we need to reduce the false negatives. and test on false positive, we need to confirm them. So the false positive will go home and quarantine. They do a second test. So they don't infect other people, but the false negative is the problem in the system, because then the individuals who are false negative are staying with us and they're infecting other people. This is very important in evaluating tests. The prevention in the community, we all know about: identify close contacts, spread, limit the spread, disinfect, and air quality. A big area for innovation is air quality inside buildings. And then masks and face shields, and disinfect individually, social distancing, and in the future, vaccine. Whether vaccine is going to be adopted 100%, we do not have that power in the United States to do it. So there will always be, we continue with these preventive measures. The testing, I have written the Palomans criteria. Potential transmission is very important. We should measure transmission. Easy to administer on-site, fast, less than 15 minutes. No lab is needed, accurate, affordable, and administered by non-medical professionals. The contact tracing is the other component of it. Without testing, without contact tracing is useless. In epidemics, they go for identify the first circle, the distal, and the proximal. The proximal is first, and then the distal, the far away, and they test them all. And if they have a vaccine, they provide them with a vaccine as a whole. So contact tracing, if we have a technology that we don't really need to call people, but based upon phone, Android or iOS or other phones, we can locate people. It is the best way to do contact tracing. And there are people who have that system, or people developing that system. If there is, we can discuss it next time. Rapid sharing of information to tell people to be tested is very important. So testing should not be universal, in my opinion, because it is not manageable this way. Contact testing, contact tracing, and isolation of groups of individuals, again, as I said, by location. Test only those who have flu symptoms, and rapid test. I repeated that slide, I'm sorry. The contact tracing, again, by groups, it should be on-site and also by the public health department. So we have to have an on-site team that's certified to do contact tracing within the building itself or the institution, because we need to do the group and those who are surrounding the group and isolate them as soon as possible. Air quality, that's a big issue. If we can have a system that improves the filtration, people talk about HEPA, but not all HVAC system can adopt a HEPA filter. So what is the filtration? If there is a way to place into the HVAC system emission of a product that will, and safe, but it will also kill bacteria and kill SARS-CoV-2, the virus, that will be wonderful. In the clinic, we use high volume section, and we have 90 units at Temple. There are so many products that are coming in high volume section, but also we need to address how we change the aerosol management system. Is there an alternative to handpieces? What are ultrasonic scalers? Do we need them, not need them? How we can reduce the aerosol? Endodontic therapy, the same thing. Minimally invasive therapies. These are all things now about the practice of dentistry to reduce the aerosol, because we deal with the, as Dr. Talas said, saliva aerosol going into the air, which we have documented doesn't go far away from the patients and the providers. So that is the reason why we don't have infections, because we don't know what the patients have. We assume everyone is potentially transmitting the virus. Air quality, I talked about that. There's something missing in all the discussion. We have a significant social behavioral problem. People are not following instructions. People don't believe in instructions, violating all sorts of rules of social distancing. In Israel, the reason why they have a second quarantine is that after they let people to go and socialize, now they have a different wave. So we have not paid attention to social and behavioral marketing, and that's where the leadership comes. The leadership is sending a different message that's not based on science and public health. The country will have a problem. But that has to be an important component of all the efforts that we're doing in testing, tracing, social distancing, and other preventive measures. So this is my final slide, and I think I did it. Isolate infected individuals and group as soon as possible. Do not lock down all people because it has significant impact on the economy. Test and isolate distal and proximal contacts. And the final quote from the Art of War: tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So hopefully we'll have a strategy now as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you all the speakers. That was very fascinating. I'd like to ask if we could open the floor for any questions. If you have any questions, please try to type them in the chat segment, or you have a button on the bottom that says reaction. You can also mark like a low or something if you'd like to ask a question. Dean, would you like to manage the questions?
I will manage the questions. You can enter them in the chat room. I'll watch the chat room, as well as you can raise your, is it the left hand? The left hand, there's a hand that's blue. You click on it and we'll see it that you want to say something.
So we have fantastic panels here with great knowledge. So while we're waiting, I'd like to thank Stanley Bergman for his keynote. I'd like to thank Kathy Olafling for the panel that she managed, as well as to Julie Charleston. That was fascinating, and all the speakers, obviously.
I too wanted to comment what a lovely conversation this was, and how it represented Temple so well in terms of both the diversity of the speakers and the multicultural perspectives. It's marvelous, and as a multicultural institution, it's to say a perfect reflection for Temple. I'm sure the Dean appreciates that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
Do we have a shy audience today? No questions?
That's a good question.
Gary has one.
Yes.
Here, Garrett Charleston, he's our advisory board member, former board member, and the one who nominated the Dean.
Actually, a comment. First of all, congratulations to Ahmed and Temple University. I think what we have seen today is the greatness of dentistry as a profession, as an industry, because as many speakers have said, no one has gotten infected by being in the dental office and being treated. You folks know how to handle it. Musa Bajali and Adam Stabels are making peace through dentistry. It's an amazing, amazing art form that we have developed here in bringing people together through curing people. And so I thank every one of you that has contributed to this great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question, Dean.
No, I still don't have a question. I don't see any blue hands.
This is from Anastasia Cholakis, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Now I got it.
Should I read it, or you
With
see
all
it?
these innovations comes increased cost of delivery of education. Can you please comment? Well, definitely, I always said in April and May, is that opening the dental school at a cost is better than closing it. So yes, we have absorbed a significant amount of cost for the PPE in order to operate. But I think not operating has even higher cost for us. Some dentists are adding fees to patients. We have not done that because our patient population is already affected by this COVID-19 and also loss of jobs. But this is a major concern, so we have to find ways really to work around it. I think the products themselves, the PPE products, cost will go down as things will change. So I'll equate this to a temporary storm that may last for a year. However, the changes that we have introduced in infection control, just like when we did with the HIV problem, in the early 80s, they will remain with us, but maybe at different levels. And actually in China, whenever I go, and I've been there to China maybe about 10 times, I always say I want the faculty and the students at my dental school to have the same PPE level, because they have a higher PPE level because of SARS-1. So that protected them, and we are right now higher than SARS-1 PPE level.
Dean Palmon or Professor Bajali, do you have any comments from your schools?
No,
Okay.
the same approach what Ahmed explained.
Yes. Okay. First, of course, I agree with Dean Amit. Second, I see every crisis as a new opportunity. And when we look on our infection control before and after, this was a great opportunity because we could improve the facility and the procedures in a week, what we didn't manage to do in 5 years, okay? I remember my discussions with head of departments and with the instructors, trying to persuade them that we need to have high level of infection control, and they were laughing at me, okay? Nobody is sick in nothing. What do you want from us, okay? 1 week, new protocols, everybody agrees to that, making better facilities, getting money for that, okay, in a very easy way. So we were improving our dental school. And in one hand, it's funny to say, thanks to COVID-19, okay? It's a big crisis, but the big crisis gave us new opportunities. So that's
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Claudia, Dr. Claudia Katka.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much. Congratulations to Dean Amit Ishmael as a former student from Michigan and also at Mission in Washington, D.C. Congratulations to everybody. Very briefly, I'd like to just inquire, given the intellectual capacity we have here on the platform, as to what infrastructure pipelines are there currently available to improve and increase the collaboration in an interdisciplinary perspective, particularly between the private sector of oral healthcare and the public healthcare?
It's a very important question. And if I just understand it and repeat it, you said what infrastructure is available, or what infrastructure is available to improve the private-public collaborations?
Yes, and particularly in real time. Dentistry really ought to have been, I would say, and we all agree, the leader in terms of setting the standard for effective, 3 decades or more of outpatient surgeries through much more, I would say, more virulent pathogenic phases of pandemics and so on and so forth. And so what existing current pipeline channels are available from all the subsectors within the healthcare matrix to improve the interdisciplinary communication with respect to etiologic diagnosis, of course, also treatment solutions, as well as incorporate and bring closer and bridge the private sector community that is really the mass distributor of clinical protocols to the masses, and the public sector aspect, meaning the public health.
So I'm not an expert in this area, but I'll provide my observations. I think the next meeting on the 21st will look at the private sector proposed opportunities for us to work with them in order to develop the technology and test it. I think what happened in March and April and May is something that concerns us a lot, is that we suddenly became a secondary profession to the medical profession. We became non-essential, and even the dentists, our colleagues, don't want to interact with this virus or this solve the problem, only for emergency purposes. So we say we are important in primary care providers, and we acted totally reverse of that. And the medical colleagues didn't even pay attention to us. And that's frankly, they didn't pay attention. We had to knock on the door many times so that the hospital would work with us. So I think this is a time for us to reflect who we are and what and enforce that in terms of healthcare providers. As far as the private industry, we're open for all ideas. The dentists develop so many innovative ideas. People have found ways to do negative pressure room. They converted the whole practice negative pressure room. People found ways to do these masks now that actually is feeding clean air. That's not just a regular mask. All sorts of ways. The ventilation system or the high vacuum system was only 2 units or 3 units when we started in April, and now there are 10, 15 units. and each one of them have different capacity and different technology. So I think there is a lot of opportunities because dentists rely on technology. We really need to think differently about it. But most importantly that we haven't addressed is how we provide care and why we still use a handpiece for the last over 100 years. Is there another technique to manage caries? We still have to do surgical, but is there another way? Is lasers a solution, for example, to a lot of cavity preps? Does it produce less aerosol than a handpiece? So I have a question coming from, you said Raphael?
Yeah, actually, it's from me. I was wondering. I'm the head of the oral and dental technologies sector in Israel, and I was wondering if the decision for certain technology now, especially for the COVID issues, was made by the CDC or ADA, or is there any other way that equipment is entering the market or chosen?
Well, does anyone want to answer that? As far as equipment, medical equipment or dental equipment, that has to go through the Food and Drug Administration.
Yes.
As far as tests, has to go also through the
Both.
Food and Drug Administration. As far as guidelines, it is going to be CDC. But unfortunately, all these very strong and very important international organizations have been undermined politically, but they are still functioning. The FDA and the CDC, and then also the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, plays a role. And then we have OSHA in terms of air quality. We had to deal with all the 4 organizations in addition to lawyers in order to do a lot of the work we did. So nothing has changed in the United States. However, the process, at least due to COVID, has been moving. I think David could comment on that better than me. The process has been moving faster than before, and a lot of red tape has been cut, but sometimes they add more. David, do you have any comment on this? Oh, Julie, maybe.
Well, David can start.
No, Julie, please.
We have seen exactly what you're talking about. In the beginning, there was a lot of rapid acceptance through the emergency use authorization, and then it had to be pulled back because there were some issues with it. So now I think we're starting to see a normalization, although that seems to be, there's still kind of bifurcated ways within the FDA to submit products, the 510K route, and also the EUA. It just depends on the type of product and the rapidity with which you want to get it through.
Yeah, I'll add 2 small comments. One is that there are some products that are being incubated by the NIH and specifically testing, and this is with the RADx program that they have going. And it's believed, although not known, that those products which are getting pushed through that program may get an expedited route to commercialization and getting an EUA. Second, and I'll just comment on behalf of Henry Schein, when we're looking to bring products to market, although at the time it may be okay to have an EUA, we are asking questions about, will you be later pursuing a 510K, or is this kind of a flash in the pan? And I think we're indexing towards those products that will ultimately get the full authorization. I do think that people are using COVID as, especially around diagnostic testing, as a foothold to then go and expand their different assays into flu and RSV, strep, HPV. And so we'll see where they go. But I reflect the comments of Dean Ismail and Julie.
And Palwan, do you have another comment, and then we'll conclude the event?
Who's the comment?
I think that Dean Palwan was trying to squeeze something before they.
Yes.
No, okay. So I thank everybody for their comments, especially for all our speakers. We have Dr. Abrams, Todd Abrams. We have, of course, Dean Ahmed Ismail. We have Stanley Bergman, Kathy O'Laughlin. We have Marisol Telez Machan. Sorry if I mispronounced this. mispronouncing, Galit Almozlino, Professor Musa Bajali, and we have Julie Charleston, Dean Palmon, Aaron Palmon, David Kochman, and I appreciate all of you for joining us today in honor of Dean Amit Ismail and the dental school at Temple University. We look forward to hosting you again on October 21st. We received some requests to perhaps move this meeting to the morning to allow for more dental practitioners to participate. If you have any comments on that, that will let us have a better decision on the timing. I appreciate your feedback. We want to include as many people so we can facilitate joint ventures. We already have Israeli companies that are interested in presenting their latest technologies for testing, rapid testing of COVID-19. So please join us. I appreciate all your support and thank you all. We can unmute everybody. If you want to talk to each other, you can stay and talk to each other. So
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much and happy holidays.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.